Welcome to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.
In this podcast, we'll delve into the emerging debate on the future of EU cohesion policy after 2027 and see what the different stakeholders have to say about it. Stay with us.
Throughout the years, the EU's cohesion policy has helped close the gaps between countries and between different regions in the same country, ensuring that all citizens get the same opportunities regardless of where they live.
But cohesion policy is expected to change fundamentally in the coming years, and the debate is already alive and kicking.
Yes, it is, giving regional and local stakeholders a unique opportunity to influence the national positions and that of the European institutions early on. So, what's the debate about?
Well, key issues include, for example, the degree to which other EU policies support cohesion objectives, the balance between the policy's use in crises and its focus on longer-term goals, the future governance of the policy, as well as how it can be made more effective and the potential impact of a future wave of EU enlargement.
It is a highly political debate because it touches on many of the challenges the EU is facing, such as the triple refugee, energy and cost of living crises. But it's also about the resilience of European cities and regions, the remaining disparities between them, climate change, the rural-urban divide, digital connectivity, or what's known as the geography of discontent.
Which refers to the development traps that have led to less support for the European project. But another key challenge is to determine how cohesion policy and the Recovery and Resilience Facility, set up to promote economic recovery after the pandemic, will work together after 2027 in a way that creates synergies and avoids overlaps.
So there are a lot of issues to be looked at. Now, who's involved in this debate and what are their views? Let's begin with the European Commission.
Following the publication of the 8th Cohesion Report and the challenges it identified, the European Commission set up a high-level group of specialists to examine and reshape the role of cohesion policy.
It brings together representatives of academia, politicians, socio-economic partners, and civil society. And this year, they've already met 8 times to discuss how to make cohesion policy more effective and support a fair digital and green transition as well as regional growth. We spoke to the chair of the high-level group, Andrés Rodríguez Poz.
Cohesion policy is now more needed than ever, but it should go beyond having a static dimension. And we all agree that less developed regions in the European Union should receive investment to tap into their untapped potential. But it should also have a dynamic dimension, channeling investment and support to make sure that areas that until now were at the forefront of our economic growth spring out of their trap and become, once again, motors of development.
The group's conclusions and recommendations are expected in early 2024, so stay tuned. Now, let's switch to the European Parliament.
Following the publication of the 8th Cohesion Policy Report, the Parliament also outlined its ideas for the future policy. They included, among others, separating the political aspects of the Common Provisions Regulation from its financing, establishing a new Just Transition Fund after 2027, and integrating the Agricultural Fund for Rural Development into cohesion policy.
The Council, representing EU member states, wants the future cohesion policy to continue strengthening economic, social and territorial cohesion in the EU, but wants simpler and more effective rules to support long-term investment and to avoid multiplying funds.
During a meeting under Spanish EU presidency on the future of cohesion policy, the Secretary-General for European Funds within the Spanish Ministry of Finance, Mercedes Caballero, called for a new set of indicators as well as more flexible co-financing rates.
Cohesion policy has to base its analysis. Cohesion 2.0 has to take account of the context of the various different regions with a new set of indicators which enables this adaptation to this place-based approach. using a new set, as I said, of indicators.
Another key stakeholder in this debate is the European Committee of the Regions, who has prepared an own opinion report on the future of cohesion policy, stressing that all European regions should remain eligible for funding. The committee insists also that the shared management model, multi-level governance, and the partnership principle remain the guiding principles of the future policy.
The debate has drawn in views from many other institutions and stakeholders, from banks to academia and regional organizations. And in general, they tend to agree on one thing. The future cohesion policy needs to be more impactful and effective in promoting territorial balance.
At the same time, development traps need to be addressed by investing more in innovation, education, and training in the regions that are still falling behind. Stakeholders also agree that cohesion policy needs to be simplified, more user-friendly, and more visible to citizens.
So how can we expect negotiations to progress over the next months and years? Here's Balázs Secsi from the European Parliamentary Research Service.
Based on the pace of the previous reforms, we can expect the legislative process on the future of cohesion policy to start about 2 years before the end of the funding period, so in the first half of 2025. And negotiations will be complex and difficult. But regulations on the spending rules for the post-2027 funding period must be in place by the summer of 27, so that member states can begin to implement the new structural funds programs on time.
So, compelling times lie ahead for cohesion in the EU, and the time to influence the debate is now.
Want to know more? Check out Balázs Secsi's full policy brief on the EPRS website or in our app.
This is a European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.
Thanks for listening.